To the Templeton Board of Selectmen's regular meeting. It is June 12th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Time now is 6:34. Stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, this meeting is being recorded by Templeton Community Television. It is available on YouTube and Community Channel 8. Is there anyone else taping at this time? Not seeing anything. You'll notice we have Julie and Diane are out sick this evening, but we do have our quorum with the freshman class of 2019.
Thank you.
At this time, are there any public comments? I'll remind any public comments to be limited to 3 minutes. Okay, no public comments. We'll move into the regular agenda for tonight's meeting. Okay, we've got a couple of sets of minutes. Okay, first set of minutes are for the regular session, our first session, May 29th. You guys have the script.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written for the Board of Selectmen, Wednesday, May 29th, minutes of the meeting.
Okay.
Second.
All right, on the motion to accept the minutes for May 29th,
I'm trying to thought I had.
any discussion? Any omissions, changes?
I thought I had one.
Holly, do you need Julie's, when we accept the minutes, do you need her signature on that as the clerk?
I do, but I do it after they're approved, and I take the draft mark off and everything.
Okay. Any discussion?
See,
All right, hearing no discussion on the motion to accept the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting, May 29th. How do you vote, Jeff?
yes.
Terry?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well. Okay, probably could have included the second one, but the workshop minutes for June 5th.
okay.
You want to just, we can make a motion separately for that.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the workshop, Wednesday, June 5th, with one correction. I recused myself, but I didn't end up leaving the room. It just says I left the room, but I didn't leave the room, I just stayed in the room, so I don't know how important that
Probably fine
is,
as
but
well. Okay. Okay, on the motion to accept the minutes from June 5th's workshop, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Holly, you think it's fine the way it's read, meaning her issue of whether she left the room or not? She didn't leave the room.
You left the table though, right?
Yeah.
I left the table, so you
That's
can
fine.
just write left the table. I
Okay.
didn't leave the room,
I'll
I
change
just
that.
left the
Okay.
table.
Any other discussion? Okay, on the motion to accept the minutes from June 5th, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
And I was not present for the majority of the meeting, but I don't need to be, so I vote yes. And there was a one-page executive committee executive minutes prior to this specific board, and they're for May 8th. Item 4B.
4B,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't at that. Am I allowed to do that?
Yep.
I wasn't at that.
Yeah, we kind of settled that the first time that we met. You don't need to be present to be able to approve the minutes. I know that that's been, the board is always kind of, that's already been through the Attorney General's office.
All right, I haven't even seen them.
It was the one-page minutes for the executive session.
Well, if I read this.
Yeah.
one, I wasn't sure if it was in there.
They will
Jeff,
always
did you-
come as a separate, they will never
Okay.
come with your package because we scan the package and make that public. So
Okay,
you'll get one email with all
that's
public
what it was,
materials.
yeah.
You'll get a separate one with the non-public materials. That's the best I can tell you.
Thank you.
You can-
Okay,
If you haven't, I mean, you haven't read them.
Jeff,
Can we
have you
table
read
this for
them?
the next meeting?
Yeah.
do you want to make the motion?
If she hasn't even read them.
Oh, I'll make a motion to accept the executive session minutes
Okay.
Me.
of, what was the date?
May 8th.
May 8th, 2019.
Second? Any discussion?
No.
Okay, on the motion to approve the executive session minutes for May 8th meeting, how do you vote, Jeff?
I abstain.
Terry?
That's what I was gonna abstain.
Okay,
Can you?
let's just table this until the next meeting.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry.
Jeff, would you like to withdraw your motion? I think we should just table it, if there's that much
I'll
confusion.
withdraw my motion and table it until the next meeting when the other members are
Okay,
present.
that sounds good. Okay. All right, let's move on to item 5B, the annual appointment of town council.
Mr. Chairman, just one point of information, our fault in drafting. Should you make an appointment this evening, the term would end on June 30, 2020.
Right,
We incorrectly noted it as 2019.
Okay. Yeah, that would be a very short term.
Well, it can be a short-lived job sometimes.
is that Tom?
It is.
Tom?
Tom Harrington, or Myers
I move
Harrington.
to appoint Myers and Harrington as town council for a term to end on June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Okay. That's all right.
Okay, on the motion to appoint Mayaris and Harrington as town council, any discussion? I feel very good about continuing his services,
We've enjoyed working
Yep.
with them.
very attentive.
Oh, you're for, yeah. Okay.
I mean, just discussion-wise, I've been very happy with their services to the town. I mean, it's legal services, they're impartial, they do a very good job of explaining themselves.
They're good with the public?
I think, they've addressed, I've never heard anyone complain during town meeting, any special or annual town meeting. They answer any question that is arisen by Derek Hall, the moderator. They do a very good job. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, on the motion to appoint Miaris and Harrington as town council for a term to end on June 30th, 2020, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Just backtracking a bit, we need a vote to table that agenda item.
No, you don't need to vote for that.
Okay.
The board's been more informal about that.
Okay. Okay, we've got item 5, Charlie, we've got a host of appointments to go through this evening.
And people don't have to be here?
In many cases, these
They're
are people,
elected.
yeah. The majority of these are incumbents. Carter?
They are. These are in response to an annual inquiry that Holly sends out mid to late May, reminding people that their appointments are up and asking them to indicate their interest and willingness to continue serving.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the list that's in your draft motions. The agenda list is a touch longer. There is some, I'm not gonna say, there's some outright confusion emanating out of a court case in southeast state about exactly how detailed you have to go in listing this. One believing the court requires you actually list every single person, so that's gonna be a
Within the
bit of an
motion?
evolution. But if you referred to your motions,
Yeah.
that would give you the raft of people in front of you
Mhm.
for consideration tonight.
Okay.
Unless the board has previously indicated they want to see candidates for reappointment, they do not tend to come in for reappointment, though they oft come in for an initial interview when you're gonna make them, when you're gonna appoint them to something for the first time.
Yeah.
Can you do it collectively, like I move to a point and then just go through the whole list?
Well, I would, yeah, I would go,
Line by
I would go
line?
agency by agency, you know, listing their names.
Yeah, given the case and where it is with the Secretary of State's office and where it is evolving with us, I would suggest, as the chairman has, that you go through them
Yeah.
agency by agency.
Agency by agency, and it looks like the terms that we have here, none of them are, you know, like the Recreation Committee is all one-year term. If it had separate terms where it would be different language for the motion, I
Okay.
could see separating them out, but that's not the case in any of these.
I just don't see the agricultural committee. Is that on there?
There are some that are not there because
Zoning.
this is evolving as we better
Right.
understand.
Zoning
That
didn't
court
have
decision.
anybody, right?
Yeah, everybody was there, and we're gonna try to get better at this, because quite frankly, you shouldn't let your town administrator read recent court rulings over a weekend.
Council on Aging isn't on there.
Well, what we can
He
do.
sometimes finds things you don't necessarily wanna know about.
I'm good.
Well,
So,
I just wanted to address Terry's comment.
Sure.
There's a lot of them that are 3 or 5 years, so they're not up for reappointment this year, so
They're
that,
just written in the.
right, so that's why some of them aren't on here.
Okay.
And there's a few that haven't got back to me yet, so they'll be on the next meeting.
yeah.
Okay,
For motion-wise, the way that it's prepared here, I'm very comfortable going through all of them. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll kick it off with the first one. I move to appoint Ron Devon to the Board of Appeals for a 5-year term ending June 30th of 2024.
second,
Any discussion? Mr. Devon, are you here? I don't know, I know most of these people, but I don't know some of them. No further discussion on the motion for Ron Devon for Board of Appeals. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
yes,
I vote yes as well. I move to appoint the Cultural Council for 3-year terms Patricia Gale and Carol or Jan Casey. And their term would expire June 30th of 2022. Currently serving.
okay. Second,
Any further discussion on Patricia Gale and Carol Casey? On the motion to appoint Patricia and Carol to the Cultural Council, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
yes,
And I vote yes as well. I move to appoint Steve Castle and Glenn Eaton to the Economic Development Industrial Corporation for a 1-year term expiring in June 30th of 2020.
second,
On that motion, is there any discussion? Is either Steve or Glenn present? I saw Steve earlier. Okay, no further discussion on on the motion to appoint Stephen Glenn to the Economic Development Industrial Corporation for a one-year term. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. I move to appoint Howard Sands to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term expiring June 30th of 2022.
Second, I know him.
Okay. He's not in the room?
No.
Okay. Okay, motion and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing nothing. On the motion to appoint Howard Sands to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Absolutely.
And I vote yes as well. I move to appoint Michael Morgan and Sonia White to the Boynton Library Trustees for a 1-year term expiring June 30th of 2020.
I second. Sonia's already been on. I don't know about Mr. Morgan, but.
Expiring term, yeah.
Mm.
Any discussion? On the motion to appoint Michael and Sonia to the Boynton Library Trustees for a 1-year term, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. I move to appoint Dennis Rich to the Open Space Committee for a 1-year term expiring June 30th of 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second, and any discussion? Okay, on the motion for Dennis Rich to the Open Space Committee for a 1-year term, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. I move to appoint Daniel Theroux, Scott Dill, Jessica Sutton, Philip Moulton, Jason Hunt, and Chris Lodig. Did I pronounce that right?
Lottie.
Lodig. To the Recreation Committee for a 1-year term expiring on June 30th, 2020.
I'm happy to second.
All right.
Great
thank you.
group.
Question.
Oh, can I?
We have a bylaw that, and I'm just, that says we have a recreation commission, and that commission was created, I think originally in '73, but it was updated at the special town meeting, November 29th, 2007, for a 5-member recreation commission. I don't want to be petty, but how did we come about the name change? Because one example is the advisory committee was created, not according to state law, back in 1951. Somewhere along the line, it got named the advisory board, even though the bylaws called it the advisory committee. And I'm just trying to keep things straight and correct, and so there's no confusion. I think the taxpayers, deserve that. If they created a bylaw, and that's the job of town meeting, and it was the Recreation Commission, and somehow the name has gotten changed to Recreation Committee, I'm just wondering how that came about. I know it was
Mr.
recently.
Terenzini, any? go
I have
ahead.
no clue
Okay.
Not to
on
confuse
that
things.
But they have the
specific
same
name
charge.
change. I will say that further on, despite having gone through all the codifications, there were some things that we saw kind of late in the game. We thought to tackle them, Jeff, and your point is well taken. For instance, if one looks at the bylaw, it speaks to appointing 3 people from precinct A and 3 people from precinct B. We now have 3 precincts in this community. So this one is on our radar screen for revisions at the fall town meeting. There will be some other outright and still technical amendments need. We'll get into a little bit and see if we can't get you that answer.
I happened to look at an annual town report of 2000, either 4 or 5 today, and it was the Recreation Committee. But, again, the bylaw done in,
Is it Stonebridge or Stony Bridge?
I just,
I understand your point. It's well taken, and we'll try to get behind it.
Not to confuse things, but, pardon me, Mr. Chairman, rookie mistake. Was I supposed to recuse myself because I am on that payroll? I don't know.
I think it's covered by her.
It wouldn't be bad to recuse yourself, because
Yeah.
there's still enough people to pass it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So, I move to appoint, I don't have a second at this point. I move to appoint Daniel Thoreau, Scott Dill, Jessica Sutton, Philip Moulton, Jason Hunt, and Chris Lodig to the Recreation Committee or Commission. Their duties are going to be set forth already for a one-year term, June 30th, 2020. Do you want to second that motion?
Second.
Okay. Good discussion on what's in a name. I think if their charge is the same, we
Yep.
can iron that out, but Jeff, I agree.
I mean,
I think that was our point during town meeting, is to make sure during codification that we kind of align everything, so people aren't looking for a finance committee in Templeton or an advisory board. They're looking for the advisory committee. I got it. Okay, on the motion that's been duly seconded, for Daniel Thoreau, Scott Dill, Jessica Sutton, Philip Moulton, Jason Hunt, and Chris Lodig for the Recreation Committee for a one-year term. How do you vote, Jeff?
yes.
Terry?
Recuse.
And I vote yes. Okay. I move to appoint Adrian Morgan to the Scholarship Committee for a term of 1 year, expiring in June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to appoint Adrian Morgan to the Scholarship Committee for 1 year, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. I move to appoint Julie Richard, Steve Castle, and John Caplis to the Scout Hall Reuse Committee for a 1 year term expiring June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you.
Two questions. One, Julie Richards is a member of the Board of Selectmen. John Caplis is a former member of the Board of Selectmen. And if anyone took their conflict of interest test, this was on there. And it's Mass General Law 268A, Section 21A, that says, no member of a municipal commission or board shall be eligible for appointment or election by the members of such commission or board to any office or position under the supervision of said board. And secondly, no former member of a commission or board shall be eligible to serve until the expiration of 30 days from termination of his service. John Caplis has only been off the Board of Selectmen for 24 days.
Okay.
So we have and this is,
Can I see?
it's one of those little things, but it's important.
So we have a motion and a second. What I would be comfortable doing on both sides is addressing the Mass General Law and the time frame for Mr. Caplis. I think that we can sufficiently do that by basically tabling the Scout Hall Reuse Committee appointments until our next business meeting. So I respectfully withdraw the motion for Mr. Caplis, Mr. Castle, and Ms. Richard. And I will proceed in the interest of time. I move to appoint Rick Moulton to the Templeton Elementary School. Oh, we got a list here. I move,
Nope, just.
no, it's a whole list. So we've got, I move to appoint Rick Moulton, Teresa Casper, Henry Mason, and Kirk Machete to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee for a term of 1 year expiring June 30th of 2020.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
I will comment one thing. Our last meeting, or a couple meetings ago, We appointed members of the Board of Selectmen to this committee. The exception to that Mass General Law is if the committee is created by town meeting, then the board like is exempt from that law. That's why we're allowed, like the Senior Center Oversight Committee,
Yep.
this, the
Because we
building
elected
committee.
So
you
would
and
you and
Diane.
Diane should be on
Right.
that list?
Yes, because it was created by town meeting. It's an exemption, so just in case, I don't want to confuse
The
people.
building committee or the,
The building committee, oversight committee, capital planning set forth by a bylaw. That was set by town meeting, so
Right.
it's an exemption to,
but that
The-
all
the
comes
general
under
law.
this Templeton
so-
Elementary School Building Committee, even the
Yeah.
budget and all that?
we're allowed to serve on, selectmen are allowed to serve on certain committees if they were created by town meeting,
Okay.
so.
And we still have okay.
A motion.
All right, on the motion that's been seconded to appoint Rick Moulton, Teresa Casper, Henry Mason, and Kirk Machete to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee for a one-year term. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes,
Terry?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well.
we didn't have to add them, these two?
No, they were the last time,
Okay.
on our business meeting, on our first business meeting. And lastly, I move to appoint Paul Sari and Brock Dunham to the Veterans Advisory Board for a term of 3 years, expiring June 30th, 2022.
Second,
couple questions. And I don't know if Holly can answer this, but according to the minutes of the Board of Selectmen, August 22nd, 2018, Paul Sari was appointed to the Veterans Advisory Board through June 30th, 2020.
I don't think that's accurate, maybe the minutes are, I'll have to look into that.
Okay, and Brock Dunham, he was, at the same meeting, he was appointed through June 30th, 2019. So, his 3-year, it makes sense to me, but Paul Sari, he's already appointed through 2020, unless that's a typo.
That might have been a typo, I'll check into that.
And my other thing is, does Mike Uvard still wish to serve on the Veterans Advisory Board?
Yes, he's on through
June.
22, I think.
June 30th, 2019. That's from the minutes of May 30th, 2018. And I couldn't find a reappointment for him. I went through the minutes from January 1st till today of this year, and I couldn't find a reappointment for him. So I was hoping he would be here so I could ask him if he wants to stay on and add him to the list, because his term is up.
He
The end
does
of
want to
this
stay
month.
on, I had emailed him. But I'll check on those.
You want to keep the motion the way it is?
Jeff?
Like I said, yeah, it's just, he's appointed through
And we can make an
2020. I just don't know
amendment.
if that was a typo or not.
Yep.
And I want to know if Mike Rivard wants to be on, if we could add him to this now or next meet, well, we meet now on the 19th.
We already have,
Meeting on the 26th
So,
all
this
right.
month, so I might suggest, if you
Yeah, get
proceeded
his-
with
'cause if he wants
Mr.
to
Brock's
serve,
appointment
I'd
and
like
held the other one till the 26th, that would give Holly time to
Let's just table this one.
look
as
at
well.
that. But Mr. Brock's you could
That
dispose
doesn't
of
have any
tonight.
impact on operations, does it?
No, we had our meeting last night.
Okay. We can just table it, and we'll make sure all our ducks in a row.
The
And
whole
add
thing.
Mike's name to it.
The whole Veterans Advisory Board.
Okay, I respectfully withdraw my motion for the Veterans Advisory Board nominees. Okay, that completes item 5C. And we're gonna move on to public hearing, poll hearings. I'd like to open the public hearing for the Lamb City and Patriots Road and Cook Road telephone pole hearing. Time is 7:04. Do we have, yep. Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
Good. My name is Tom Barry, I'm the electric superintendent with the Municipal Light Department here. First of all, it's nice to meet the new members of the board.
Absolutely.
Are we talking, these are two different public hearings. Are we addressing them both at the same time, or you want me to talk about them one at a time, or how do you want to?
I think we could, within the hearing, we could do both, because we're gonna close the meeting, and then the board will consider both, approving both, so I feel comfortable doing both.
Okay,
Do you wanna just give your presentation for,
Sure.
successively?
sure.
We have all we have the majority of the materials, I think, that we need for this.
Okay, yeah, so just to quickly go over, Lamb City Road, we're looking to put one pole, about 90 feet, off of Patriots Road, for the purpose of providing electric service, to a home, to be built by Matson Homes, on the opposite side of the road. As pictured in the drawing. We'd be running cable across Patriots Road, from our pole number 235, then running across the street to a pole on private property to service the home. So that's Lamb City Road. The second one,
235, I see it. Got it.
yeah, right across Patriots Road.
Okay. Before we move on to the next one, Cook Road. I think we'll handle each of them, each of the questions or otherwise. You have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Tom's usually pretty good. He's right on usually.
And are there any abutters or anything, or do you foresee any kind of, any issues installing that pole, or?
No, the pole be on the town road right away, about 3 feet off the road. Wouldn't be traffic or anything.
Okay. Is there any public comment for Lamb City Road? Okay, we'll move on to Cook Road.
All right?
Chairman, just for the record, notices were sent out 2 weeks before to all the abutters.
Okay.
Okay, Cook Road. We were, the Light Department was approached by landowner Everett Bellevaux, owns quite a bit of property on Cook Road. He's looking to build a home on his land. In order to service that home, we'd be looking to extend the existing line about 500 feet. To do that, we'd have to install three poles. There'd be 40-foot poles with an anchor at the last one to guide the cable.
It's like a stake in the ground with the cable running up to the pole? Or
Yes.
Anchor, okay.
Yes.
I
Yep.
just wanted to make sure I was getting the right terminology.
Yep. And again, it's pretty much a straight shot. They're just continuing the last pole goes a little bit beyond house number 129.
You said the last house number?
Yes, this is on
The
the,
last lot?
129.
Okay. Oh, I see it down there at the bottom. I got it.
yeah, this is on the south road end of Cook Road.
And a notice was sent out, Holly? Did they send out notice?
For both of them, yeah.
And nothing?
Nope, we don't hear anything back.
We do have a resident here, I believe, that.
Yeah, I'm on Cook Road about I'm here because of some unresolved issues from the last expansion. The petitioner took it upon himself, apparently because it was his equipment used, to fell a large tree at the 129 address that was outside of the existing light wires into my property.
Yep.
And as a good neighbor, I gave him the option of cleaning it up. no concern of the tree damage and the stone wall, restore it. Nothing has happened, and Tom and I have correspondence dating back to August of 2017.
Yeah,
So before we go forward, I would like to see the past corrected.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him an option as a good neighbor, and he's failed to meet that.
Okay. Your name again?
I'm Jack Dwelly.
Jack Dwelly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did get the letter, that's why I'm here.
the reason Mr. Dwelly contacted us is because we had a contractor on that road at the same time, cutting some danger trees, some rotted trees. He thought it might have been one of those, but I went out and looked at it, and this was just a whole complete oak tree, just fell right across with the limbs still on it, and that definitely wasn't our doing, so I had
Pardon me, Tom, did you say felled or fell? Felled,
Cut.
so it was
cut, just
cut.
cut down from the
Definitely
ground.
was cut.
I guess the biggest concern is a multitude of risks from cutting on the opposite side of the power lines to felling it across the Cook Road. And apparently there's no record of him ever petitioning to take a roadside tree. Obviously, if they're in danger, Tom would handle that with a proper petition. The tree was sound, it was just, I guess, determined to be
Yep.
in the way.
So Jack, you're bringing this up as, in the normal course of, Light and Water, or, before they do anything else, you basically put to bed any other issues that they
Right, I want
have.
it cleaned up, and I want it known that everybody was put at risk and nobody was notified.
Okay.
So before we go forward, we need an understanding as to what happens from this point
I
on.
was actually looking at the bylaws about tree cutting, because I've seen a lot of tree cutting, and I was on a former board where there were bylaws about tree cutting, and I don't think we have any in town, which we definitely might wanna work on having some bylaws about people just going out and cutting out hardwood trees and cutting trees at their own
Yeah.
discretion
Well, I
without
mean-
petitioning the town for permission or having somebody come out and see what the job is that they're gonna do, and, you know, if it's a perfectly sound hardwood tree, jeepers.
Right. So, Mr. Dwelly brings up an incident that happened, but I'm trying to connect. I just want to be able to ask questions before we close the hearing and we go into deliberations as a matter of connectedness or not. So that was just, that was concerning poll 1212, or the clearing for the work for 1212, when they were working on
The poles
lot number
already set.
129.
This was after the house had already been constructed. And then they took it upon themselves to take the tree down. But as I said before, I would have no problem if you restored the damage. But now, because they opted not to and everybody was put at risk, I just want the board aware. Going forward, what you're exposing yourself to, I guess.
Okay.
And if you had witnessed the building lots as he builds them, it's not a work of art.
Excuse me,
You have a question?
yes, Carter, does the board have any recourse for that?
Not within the hearing, though.
Like, how do we?
As a related matter to what we're going through in the hearing now, no. I would not, I could see it as a related matter, but it doesn't affect what the hearing that we're going through right now, as far as recourse and amends or otherwise. Opening an investigation is a part of this. That's not within the purview of the hearing. Does that make sense?
So what Mr. Dwelly, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
you're asking not to proceed on this particular pole situation until the tree matter is resolved.
Right, and it's a simple resolution, it's a neighborly request. You knock down a stone wall, you left dead wood behind that you opted not to pull out. I'm simply asking that you clean it up as a decent neighbor, and life goes on.
Okay.
But when we look at 2 years gone by and nothing's happened, what's my recourse other than come here and protest future expansion?
Okay.
Is he a developer, do you know? Is he a land developer? A resident or a land developer?
I believe he's a resident. I believe he lives on Sandy Pine. He's got 2 children, I believe, that have homes on that, and he owned that whole side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking to build another for,
What's the timeline for that construction?
he's looking to go through with it this summer.
Okay.
There was just a conservation hearing probably 2 months ago. But the procedure's been the same, every house is his construction on the Cook Road on that side, and every one has been built for a family member, and then it seems to get sold to somebody else. So that's probably irrelevant to this discussion, but it's all part of the problem.
So can we vote on one and table the other until
Well,
they go?
we're not
through?
voting at all during the hearing. The hearing, we're collecting facts.
Okay.
We're hearing from the petitioner, we're listening to,
The proponents for it. So we're in discovery right now. We're trying to collect as much information as we possibly can.
Tom, does the electric company have any position on that or any recourse that they could help? Or what's the electric company's
I
disposition?
mean, I could kind of play middleman and just say, hey, look, you've got an unhappy neighbor. But as far as it directly affecting us, it really doesn't have anything to do with us. He approached us and, I did an estimate for some work and he's prepaid it, and I told him we'd have to petition the board, to get the trees, the poles on the town right away.
Mhm.
And that's basically where we're at. I mean, I will have correspondence with him, obviously,
Yeah.
going forward. I don't know if that would be acceptable too.
Okay, let me ask a different question. Being the abutter, and I had a roadside tree inside his power lines. and I
Mr. Jolly, hang on,
opted-
Mr. Jolly, hang on one second. Sean, are you able to pick up his audio?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Jolly,
As an
continue.
abutter, I have a roadside tree that I don't like, and I opt to cut it tomorrow. What would the town's position be if I cut A, within the road boundaries, and B, in peril of his power lines?
Exactly. I hear what you're saying, because I just picked up my bylaws this week and looked up those rules, and I couldn't find any bylaws in regard to tree cutting as a resident.
But, all right, so Tom wasn't talking about cutting down trees. Again, I'm trying to separate the matters. They're here tonight to petition for installing 3 poles on,
Cook.
right, on Cook Road. On the south side of Cook Road, as the map shows it. But we're talking about trees as a historical item, not future. Do you plan on cutting down trees to put poles?
There'll be some trimming and some small things that'll have to come out, but
Okay.
nothing large, no.
Right, and Mr. Jolly, you're arguing over the procedures for doing that. Like a bull in a china shop is what you're kind of explaining to me. They're going through there and without regard to what trees and where they're falling and
Right,
the
I'm
refuse.
looking for past damage before we go forward.
Okay,
It's set a precedent that's, I would like to see stopped and just. It's
So-
all it took to appease your neighbor was to clean up some brush and the stone wall that you destroyed. Would you do it?
No.
Or would you ignore it?
well, I mean, it would matter if it was a contentious issue, if there were people believing that they didn't do it. So, whether it's a contractor or otherwise, if no one's taking ownership, what your issue is. As a matter of recourse, you're saying before they do anything else, they should clean up their mess.
Right.
Okay.
And any contractor that Tom hires is obviously far above board and leaves things as he found it or cleaned up. And that's what our correspondence showed.
Yep.
He was probably as surprised as I was that you would leave that kind of residue behind.
Have you seen it, Tom?
I did look at it, yeah, yeah.
Would you characterize it as a major or minor amount of damage or cleanup?
It was a fairly large tree, with
Okay.
a lot of wood with it and brush.
This was 2 years ago?
Yeah, approximately, yeah. And it was, laying on the private property.
Okay. Understanding that, because now we're talking about two different issues, past performance resulting in some unhappy landowners, and moving forward to install 3 new poles for new construction to proceed, what would your recommendation to this board be? Understanding that there's a complaint, a somewhat
Well, we could
related claim.
Possibly notify him, and saying, look, there was a complaint that you cut a tree on town-owned right-of-way, without permission, and the neighbor complained about, it went onto his land, and so before we grant permission to move forward with your project, this needs to be addressed and cleaned up.
Okay. I understand. Is there any further comment or questions? Any other public comment? Jeff, anything? Any questions?
No, other than the gentleman taxpayer came before someone a couple of years ago and nobody did anything for him. And I don't blame him for coming here and
Yeah.
wanting to stop it.
Yeah. Certainly, yeah.
It should've took
Anyway,
2
we're still,
years.
okay.
Even if he offered it to somebody that needs the hardwood for their wood stove, somebody else could come in and clean it. I mean, he could have, there are other solutions that the gentleman could have proceeded with in 2 years. If he couldn't do it himself, I'm sure there are a lot of people that need cordwood, and oak is pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't get
Agree.
his side of,
As a matter of procedure, Mr. Terenzini, if we continue the hearing, we can continue it on the 26th, I think would be the next.
Which would give us an opportunity to look into it, and then you'd be better informed. I mean, the applicant for the poll is the light company,
Yep.
which by all reports has not done anything wrong. To deprive them of the ability to install poles because of the wrongful act of others, I don't know that that's necessarily a great
Yeah.
basis to be on a.
Well, I'm
It
asking
is,
the
however,
petitioner
great-
for the
It
recommendation.
is, however, great leveraging.
Yeah,
You could certainly act upon the one license that's in dispute, not in dispute, excuse me, table the other one, and I'm not aware of this, because if this was a town tree in the town's right-of-way, it should not have been removed without notification and a notice by the tree warden.
yeah.
And that's something I need to understand and look at also. So I think if you were to table it for 2 weeks, that would give us a chance to report back to you.
Do I
Without
need a vote?
necessarily delaying the work of the electric company. I don't want to.
Well, I'm acting off, my final questions within this hearing for your recommendation, that's what that's informing me enough to be able to say, I'd like to continue this. I asked the question, he gave the time frame of summer, but procedurally being this is the first
How
hearing.
many days do we have to act? I mean, this is the first time this matter's been before you.
Yep.
And you could table
Well,
this.
what I'd like to do is continue the hearing until the 26th.
On this one. My suggestion is you bifurcate them.
I
and
understand what yes, okay,
Give him his license on the other location.
okay, so I'm gonna close the hearing, okay? And I'm gonna split it into the next. Okay, there's no other further comment. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing as of 7:24. Okay, what we're going to do is split the resulting motion into two. So, first
Thank you,
motion,
Tom.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for
Devine.
coming in, Jack.
Absolutely. I move to approve the licenses for pole settings at Lamb City and Patriot Road for the Templeton Municipal Light Plant as depicted on their application dated May 17th, 2019.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve Lamb City and Patriot Road pole settings? Okay. On the motion to approve just the Lamb City and Patriot Road pole settings, how do you find Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes?
And I vote yes as well. Sorry, we probably should have slowed down a little bit.
I didn't see her go.
So Holly, just to recap, I made a motion. It was seconded by Terry. Jeff, to approve the poll settings for Lamb City and Patriot Road. No discussion. It was unanimous. I move to table the license for poll settings for Cook Road for the Templeton Municipal Light Plant as depicted on the application dated May 17th, so that further information may be gathered on, presented during the public hearing.
Second?
Motion with a second. Any discussion?
Do we need to set a date, table two?
Yeah. Yeah, I amend my,
They just go on the next
26.
agenda
Yep.
unless you're telling us you want something further out. They just go on the next agenda as old unfinished business.
Okay.
and just as a discussion item, I think that just moving forward based on the recommendation, just to look into it. I don't think it's a whole lot from what Mr. Dwelly was bringing up. To basically come, for all the parties to come to the table to figure out what was the issue. Is it a systemic issue? If it's something that we can satisfy as if like we rolled over someone's curb with a snowplow, something in that case, understanding that it's the light and water. But I think that gives us enough time, and certainly from Mr., he left the room, but from Mr. Dwelly's, that someone's paying attention. On the motion to table the license for pole settings on Cook Road for TMLP, an application dated May 17th, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes?
And I vote yes as well.
So we're not adjourning here.
Somebody gonna contact Mr. Belleville
Table. It's closed.
from the board, or
I'm sorry, say that again?
somebody from the board gonna contact Mr. Belleville, or would you like me to?
How does
To-
that work, Carter?
To be, like obtain a statement or otherwise?
Well, Holly got the contact information, we'll speak to him. I'll probably have Bob Sochip, because one of his duties is to act as tree
Tree
warden.
warden.
And what I heard
Exactly, okay.
today was more than just a tree got cut down, was that it was a town
Yeah.
tree, possibly, in the town right of way. So I'm gonna turn this over to Bob in the morning.
Okay,
Have him pursue it, and then he can seek whatever resources, Tom's or whatever. I'll make sure he connects with you, Tom.
that would be the best if you,
Tell
yeah.
him that I'd like a report back, hopefully within 10 days, so we can get it in your packet. If not, certainly so we can deliver it that evening.
Okay. To my agenda. Okay, next on our agenda, Mr. Chardy.
That's,
My name is actually Nathan Schroeder, and
Sorry.
I'm a co-owner of the company with Christoph Chartier, who's away, so.
Okay,
I'm,
nice to meet you, Nathan.
Nice to meet you as well. So I think,
Yep, we have your applications for entertainment. And it's for Gardner Road. Looks like you're putting up a 20-foot tent.
It's slightly bigger than that.
Okay, 30-foot,
Yeah, 30-foot tent.
okay.
So, what we're doing is, we're a member of the Greater Gardner Chamber of Commerce, and actually Christoph, the president of the company, is the chairman of the board. But as a member of the chamber, we wanted to host one of their business after hours. It's a regular event that the chamber does at our location, which is a relatively new satellite office location for us right on
Yeah, I
Gardner
was
Road.
unaware that you guys were on Garden Road.
We still have a office at 282 South Road, and that's still our legal location, but it's also, we have that satellite office. So it's kind of like the, ribbon cutting opening of our new location.
Excellent, okay.
So we will have a tent. I think you should have all the information where we will be serving beer and wine by the Gardner Ale House, but
Moon City,
Holly,
yeah.
Holly has their
Yep.
all their insurance information. It will all be licensed. So
Okay. And it's only until 7:30?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. The event is 5 to 7:30.
okay.
So.
Oh,
Everything's,
yeah, I put them through the paces. They got me
Yeah, we-
everything they needed.
So, and I have a check here, so I don't know if I just give that directly to you.
Yep.
Okay.
motion anyone?
Are we up for this? You make a motion, then discuss.
Okay. I move to approve the one-day liquor and entertainment license for CM Chartier Contractors LLC as depicted on their applications, subject to any requirements of the chief of police and fire chief or EMS.
Second?
Okay.
Now discuss.
Yes.
So is it the chief of Templeton or Gardner? Is it Templeton?
It's Templeton. We're right on the edge, but
Yeah,
it's
have you
It's
talked
right
to,
across from the mini storage.
that's
have you
right.
talked to Chief Bennett?
I haven't.
I have.
You have, okay.
Good,
Yeah,
He's good with it.
Yep.
okay. I'm good. Jeff?
Any further discussion?
Okay. On the motion to approve the one-day liquor license and entertainment license for CM Chartier Contractors. Depicted on the application. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Okay.
Have a great day. I hope
Thanks
it-
very much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Sunshine.
Have fun.
Yeah.
I hope you have
We'll see.
good weather.
Thanks a lot. Holly, is there anything else I need? Or?
Nope. I'll give you a call and if you wanna pick them up or I'll mail them out.
Okay, so we'll come and pick it up.
Okay.
Is there something we actually pick up? I guess I'm asking.
There's a physical paper,
There's a
but I
physical
can mail them too.
Yeah, you're gonna want that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
We'll just stop in. I mean,
Okay.
we're right around the corner. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with the agenda, Mr. Terenzini. Okay. Item 5F, vacation carryover requests. I've read through the packet or the request, and, if it got to this table, I think that you're good with it. I think it was late in the game for those items.
It was presented as a courtesy to the sewer commissioners, out of what I think's a new era of cooperativeness. I will say that I learned my lesson. This year, we put it in the administrator's report, telling everybody it was coming up. Next year, it'll be stapled to every person's paycheck
saw
with
that.
a date certain and a formal application.
Okay.
Because you'll notice it says, well, we'd like to carry it over, but if we can't, we'll use it by June 30. That's kind of a weak request for, but I think that as a courtesy, I would respectfully request your approval of this request.
Kent he's already had his last day and everything, so I
Yes.
certainly understand if they're putting it within the auspices of, we're trying to juggle it.
And they are down one other person as
Right.
well.
Okay. I move to approve the request for vacation carryover of 1 week each to Charles Robertson and Scott Taylor from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 due to staffing shortages in the sewer department.
Second?
Motion with the second.
Any discussion?
Hearing none on the motion to approve the vacation carryover for Mr. Robertson and Mr. Taylor from 19 to 20 due to staffing shortages. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes?
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you for your due diligence on the information for that. Okay, moving right along, we're moving on to the agenda item labeled trust funds. I was not here for the workshop last week, probably about a cumulative total of 5 minutes before I lost signal in the Northrop Grumman building. But I did listen to everything, and I do echo what Julie was talking about in the workshop, that it's about time that we do something with the trust funds and consolidate, and much as Diane had said, as long as we're sticking with the spirit of which these gifts, these trust funds were issued, I think that this new idea of administering them is a very good idea to move forward. So I did listen to everyone's deliberation on that, and I thought it was managed pretty well.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah. More to come. Before I give the motion, Carter, do you have anything on that, or are you good?
We have tried to stay consistent. We have 5 funds that speak to aiding the worthy poor, the deserving poor, needed or destitute persons, indigent persons, unmarried persons. So those would be grouped into a single fund for energy assistance. Yep. We've suggested.
Would, who would be your administrator for that? What would be your
You put it
go-to?
in there.
My go-to is if they'll continue to be interested, the folks that administer the LIHEAP program on behalf of the federal and state governments have agreed to do the intake, to certify whether or not the person has made an initial application for LIHEAP money, because this is meant to be supplemental, not substitute
Right.
money. They would simply send us a single-page form that they met with, got the required documentation from, and certify that they're eligible for supplemental assistance. And then we would cut the checks. We have a tentative agreement with them, and they would do that for zero. They're willing to do that administrative work for
Okay.
zero. It's not a great load, and to get some additional dollars that they can help distribute, I think was of interest to them. On the other funds, we had monies that was to be used for art for the high school, when we had a high school. We had monies that were to be determined by town meeting. And then a small amount of money to take care of a park. Those would be folded into a fund for cultural events, arts, programs, restoring historic documents. I spoke of the mural program, Dr. Casavant, that you and I have spoken of, which is a great opportunity. I've done it in some other communities. The arts teacher, they spend some time with the kids. They develop what the mural image should be, and then in the spring, it's unbelievable how well some of this stuff lasts without being tagged in any fashion. And you know, they get a great project for a little bit of materials. We get a great project for a few dollars for
Right.
materials. And it's really a great community event when they do it. So we have tried to honor the spirit of those original gifts, as you mentioned. We want to try to stay consistent. We just want to try to get this into a shape where we can
Yeah.
administer it in a way that makes some sense.
Where is our touch point within the Templeton's administration to decide what if
That would go
We-
through Community Services,
Okay.
which is
I'm happy with that.
Jackie
Got
Prime,
it.
and then they've got the Cultural Council, they've got the Historical Commission. It also helps build bridges. If they think they're getting a project every year for $500, they're gonna talk to us a little, not that you don't talk to us a lot now. But certainly, the more of those bridges you can build on everything, the stronger bond you can build on all issues that are before them. So that it's not just, we can't just be talking at each other at budget time with us saying no and them saying, but we need it. It's gotta be on everything across the
I
board.
think Chris he's saying this is our olive branch.
So, I would say that Jackie's unit, whoever's in
Okay.
charge of it at that time.
Now, we talked about the low request rate, like possibly one a year, if any, for any of these. If you did have, I'm looking at, I have a cut line on your list that you're looking at right there. If you had someone that was fitting of those descriptions, and I heard what you said about the language winds up changing, so you're not using language that is, it's tough on the ears. I think you said something about that. If you had somebody that was applying for the original intent of it, would they still be able to be serviced by these grant monies? Would it be,
They
whose
would-
discretion would it fall to?
If they had somebody that fits the original intent, no,
Yes.
once you've changed it,
That's what I
that
was,
is now the intent.
that's
Okay.
what I had to.
But we're talking about, the only difference is, these are a little bit more open. Aid the worthy poor, aid deserving poor. We are talking about aiding all of these folks through a program of supplemental
targeted.
energy assistance.
Got it, it's targeted.
Whereas somebody might come in and say, I need enough money to get my car repaired to get it back on the road. The problem with that is that it's gonna start to make it messy all over again as to how to administer it. And now it goes from a very simple program, whether they're doing it with the IHEAP folks or they're doing it through us. It goes from a very simple program of, yes, I'm income eligible. Yes, I already applied. Yes, I still have some need.
Mhm.
Check, okay, $300, $350, whatever it's gonna be. It becomes, in New Hampshire, the towns are actually the welfare department.
Mhm.
Every single town. And when you get somebody who needs $60 for the meds or $40 for the inspect, it's all the same amount of labor. It's very intensive to do it.
Mhm.
So we'd like to keep it, we'll follow your direction, of course, but we'd like to keep it focused as tightly as possible.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of echoing what Terry's concern was, if it's the original use, but we're using the Attorney General's office to basically help consolidate this and make it a little bit more efficient for adjudicating this money, original spirit or not. We're just trying to make sure that we're,
And make it accessible instead of having nine, it's consolidated.
Sure.
So we save money in the long run. We get to use the money for a specific purpose in the intent of the,
key word being purpose. And I think that, consolidating the money and timely, because I do see, the threshold there. We're just waiting, the,
You have assisted one person
right.
in 3.5 years since I've been here.
because of the verbiage?
No, it's because of people knowing about it.
People didn't know about it. Who even knows what some of this means? In the hands of LIHEAP, $130,000, even at today's interest rates, will give them around $3,000. A typical grant of $300 will allow you to assist 10 people a year, as opposed to.
With fuel only.
But if you
Energy.
consider what our demographic is, fuel assistance is a good thing. If they came and said, I can't fix my car, but if they were spending, $600 to fill an oil tank, it would reduce the burden. So demographically speaking, I don't think it's a bad thing to consolidate and go with the new purpose rules
as set forth by the Attorney General's office.
And we are one of the utility companies, so if some of our back bills get paid, that's helpful also. But if you expand it into be, okay, here's money to help anybody who makes less than 30%. Who is going to find the time to administer that kind of open-ended program? You don't have that kind of staff support.
Right.
If you had an agency that was gonna take it on, and you were gonna spend some more time spelling it out, fine. But we have an agency, and whether we use an agency or not, that would very simply put this money to work, I think effectively. We are suggesting it be for energy, because
Yep.
it's
I
needed,
don't think that's bad.
it's simple, low effort to administer it. But again, we will follow your advice. It's what you wanna do.
Let's do the filing. So I move to authorize the town administrator to cause the preparation and filing of a request with the Charities Division of the Office of the Massachusetts Attorney General to A, combine all monies, principal and interest in the funds generally known as the Julia Sawyer, Porter L. Newton, Masonic, Haskell and J. Richardson funds into a single fund for the purposes of providing a supplemental heating assistance, that's electric, fuel oil, propane, and wood, to households who are at or below 60% of the state median family income, with the interest earned in one fiscal year to be spent in the following fiscal year, and B, to combine all monies in the funds generally known as the Otis G. Rice, E. N. Stevens, and Luella Leland funds into a single fund for the purposes of creating or preserving works of public art or providing programs to open to the public on art, culture, and local history, with the interest earned on this new balance in any given fiscal year to be expendable in the following fiscal year, with the Board of Selectmen or designee to be the agent to expend and further to prepare and present amendments to the town bylaws to comport them to the purposes stated therein. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Are you thinking about?
I'm just
that bottom?
thinking, I understand in your point of view that if you help with the oil, that alleviates a burden, so if they had to fix the car or do
Mhm.
something else, there's extra money in the
Right.
budget. But don't we have oil? Don't we have heating and fuel assistance? And this is additional fuel assistance?
It is, that's his point, yep.
The LIHEAP program has been rolled back, and then there'll be a fight by Congress, particularly those in the Northeast, to try to get some more money to it. But when you apply the effects of inflation, this program has been reduced in support virtually every single fiscal year since it was first created.
So what you're
And there
saying
are
is they
still-
don't have enough revenue to meet the demand of assistance, and
In our
this
opinion,
would
no.
help?
In our opinion, no. And while it would be terrific to be able to offer program to students, go and reduce lunch program to make them eligible for scholarships for this, or there's all other kinds of things you could do. The problem is every time you add a purpose, you add more administrative burden. That we're not a welfare department, we're not a social welfare department, we're really not geared to do that. This to us seemed to be the most easily identified need with the most easily implemented administrative structure.
By comparison, we've got Sheila with us from the Veteran Services Office. When you have veterans that are in need of social assistance, what percentage need fuel assistance? Is it high?
In the last 2 years, I've had, last year I had 2 people come to me after they used their state fuel assistance, and this year I had 1.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's, I think in terms of a center of mass, something that where we could attack and actually expend some dollars, where it's actually gonna be used by what I view as a good, the demographic of Templeton. People waking up in the morning, going to work, or otherwise, we don't have a city, we don't have like a city structure where you have a different demographic. You have people in homes, some of which are older homes
Yeah.
that heating, especially, I mean, we're at what, I think it's about $3 a gallon right now for the heating home fuel. I can remember it was only a few years ago where it was $4.50 pushing $5 a gallon. So those are the times where I would want supplemental
Yeah,
fuel.
okay.
Thanks. Any further discussion?
Good.
On the motion to authorize the town administrator to cause the preparation and filing a request for the Charities Division through the Attorney General to combine the monies in the, for a single purpose for heating assistance, and then B, to combine monies for art programs. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well. Okay,
Now we seem to leave.
yeah, to,
I didn't see him here.
okay, next item. Again, next agenda item is the host community agreement with Royalston Farms for a retail cannabis establishment. I know that we talked about it at length during the workshop. I did catch up with that discussion. I know I've seen Adam's material and his presentation right in this very chair a week ago. You were in my chair. You kept it warm, thank you. So I don't think we need to go into any more deliberations on it. I move to authorize the town administrator to negotiate a host community agreement with Royalston Farms LLC for a retail cannabis establishment at One Valley Drive.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Hearing none on the motion to authorize the town administrator to negotiate a host community agreement with Royalston Farms at One Valley Drive. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well. Okay, before any old business, we have two presentations. Sheila, Veterans Park ribbon cutting.
I apologize for not getting this into your packets. We had our meeting 1 week early so that we could present this stuff to you.
Okay.
So I spent today
thank you.
updating everything.
Have you seen this? You've seen this?
I have not. Yes,
I
please.
have extra.
Perfect.
I have these images too.
Thanks.
So this is the Veterans Park, the Veterans Advisory Board, plus other veterans who have joined us over the last several months, have worked on planning a Veterans Park as well as research the cost. So the first page is just an introductory, letting you know that we have a plan for the Veterans Park. We've spoken to the CPC and the Conservation Commission. We are meeting with them again tomorrow night to make sure everything is fine. We've made adjustments as they saw fit. So, such as, we were gonna pave the driveway in the parking area, and they told us that we had to do gravel, so we switched it to gravel. We have a sign going up for CPC funding, and we're incorporating the history of the area into a bulletin board, which is something that the Conservation Committee wanted incorporated, and it was easy enough for us to do it.
Permanent installation.
Yes. Some of the things I want to bring to your attention as you look through this packet is that currently, with all the estimates that we have, we're about $6,000 under the $45,000 that was allocated for the park. We'd like to have the groundbreaking on June 22nd at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
And we're anticipating the final date, the grand opening of the park, on November 11th, which is Veterans Day.
Nice.
We will have a brick campaign because of all the time it takes and managing the forms and everything. The American Legion has agreed to take that over and to manage doing the ceremonies moving forward, put the bricks in and manage that whole program for us so that we don't have to deal with that. And with the funding that comes from that, they will be working on assisting with keeping the park up, whether that's flags or just maintenance or something, so. The next thing is that all the services and products, we started local and we moved out as we could. So most of this stuff is either being given to us by veterans or by local businesses. So we kept it local. And the last thing is, the only thing that we didn't have a budget for was the bullards, but as the brick campaign goes forward and the numbers become finalized and permanent, we'll take that extra money and we'll move it to putting bollards around the park so that people aren't driving on it.
Okay.
So in the packet,
What do you think your process is for that? Is it just administrative? Do you see any hurdles to doing that?
to doing the bullards, or?
The bullards, so I thought you were talking about the bulletin boards. You have boards that are gonna talk about history. You said you don't have money for that right now?
We have money for everything that we're
Okay.
speaking about, except for, we needed 31 bullards, and the cheapest we could find were about 700 to 1,000 apiece.
Yeah.
Really
And
not
those
in
are
our.
countersunk into the pavement?
Right, and
Okay.
those weren't in our budget, but we're looking at different options, and depending on what kind of money we have left, we'll decide on how we
Okay.
put the bullards in.
Okay. He basically wants to drop bollards all the way around the parking lot to
Right.
protect it, so no
Yeah,
one
with
joy
chains,
rides over
so
it.
that people aren't driving over it.
Okay.
One of the concerns was that it's been an open parking space for so long that we're concerned with traffic going in and especially in the wintertime, parking on the park or snowmobiling. So that was the reason for the
And
bollards.
to clarify, that's across from the old fire station in Baldwinville, for people that are watching on TCTV.
Yep.
That was the former, what was it?
Town hall.
Town hall.
Clerk's office.
Town clerk, yeah. It's now a vacant lot.
So the next thing, I had everybody sign on the next page. That's your official invitation to the groundbreaking ceremony. And we're inviting all of you, your family, the staff, and anybody in the community that would like to be there. And that will be at 10 o'clock on June 22nd, with
Okay.
refreshments afterwards.
Thank you.
The next one is a
June
dive.
22nd is a Saturday.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct.
I have signed
The
them.
next one is I'm sorry for the printout, but it was the best I could do.
No, it's a pretty good overview.
But
No,
that's
this
what the
one.
park is gonna look like.
This one.
If you wanna see what it would look like from the side, this is my fifth grade Etch-a-Sketch. That's why it's not in your pocket, because it is my
It looks pretty good.
fifth grade
This looks
Etch-a-Sketch.
like there's room for parking.
So there will be a monument in the middle. It's the visual middle, it's not the actual middle, because there's a hill. We've had a landscaper come out, and we've had, the person who did the planning for us is a veteran. He gave us the services for free, and he's done this for a living, so.
Yeah, I think you just answered one of my questions. Construction is being led by,
So I actually, he'll love this. So I did tap into the veteran community. If you don't know, I was in the National Guard, so we have a lot of friends. The fencing, the mulch, the flagpoles, and then we have a contractor and a subcontractor who's gonna oversee everything and help us make sure we have everything right. And
how is that
the
integrated with the
subcontractors-
town? Does that go through the contracts officer?
We'll work it out.
Okay,
And it's, that, they're giving their services for free, so,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
The next one is just an idea of what the construction schedule's gonna look like.
Liability.
To meet our goal of November 11th.
Yep.
We will have some volunteer days. We do plan on planting and putting the pavers in ourselves to cut down our costs. The monument person is willing to work with us and our contractor and subcontractor to get the foundation in and make sure everything is right, so. Are there any questions on the construction summary?
Is there a right-of-way issue there?
So.
With, Army Corps?
So we have to leave enough space for the trucks to get back into a back gate, both for the town as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. And you'll see that we left plenty of room for them to drive. So it's about 21 feet to drive through to get to the gate, so plenty of room. Any-
Sheila, what are you doing from us?
I just wanted to go through this. I wanted to give you the invitation and let you know that we want to move forward with the park. And right now, we're looking pretty good to not only stay within budget, but also hit that goal of November 11th.
Okay. Do you need our permission to do that? It's already town land, yeah.
It's already town land, it's a.
We've been talking about this
approved
for-
Project, and, the money's been there for a while, and
Yep.
I just, there's some things to work out, just yet technically, but I just wanna thank Sheila for really taking this on.
Absolutely.
As a project
We've
and
been
making
talking
it
about it for a
happen.
while, and I'm glad it's you. I'm glad it's Mike that's gonna be the chair in there. I think it's fantastic, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Just while you're here, the Veterans Advisory Board,
Yes.
when and where do they meet? Because, I'm asking because I don't see the postings on the town
So,
website calendar.
honestly, you'll see signatures on that list. That's not all of the Veteran Advisory Board. Those are people that just show up for the meeting. So we really haven't had a quorum since we started last year due to several issues that we've been trying to work out. But normally they meet on the third Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
Or we
And one
try
other thing,
to.
you might wanna talk to Steve Castle, because, I was watching it, I don't know, one day this weekend. Mike Curry is no longer the chairman of the Veterans Advisory Board, so I think that tape should be, just people watch it and they see, it's a thing about, veterans, when they meet and stuff, and it says Mike Curry chairman, that should probably be
Oh,
taken down.
Yeah. I don't know,
It's
where's
just-
that at, do you know?
It's on TCTV, if you spoke with Steve
Probably
Castle,
on
he
the
could just
screen.
pull that, it's
Yeah.
like a revolving tape thing showing around.
I know you find this hard to believe, but I haven't had time to look at TCTV.
No, it's just, I'm
'cause
just,
trying
while
to do
you're
all
here,
this.
And
just
third Tuesday of the month,
want-
and you're still meeting in
Oh,
the
in that
American
month.
Legion?
At the Legion.
Okay. Is Brian still the president over there?
Until the end of the month, and then it's Jim,
Jim Brio?
Rio?
no,
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry, his last name escapes me.
okay.
It's not on the list. Huh?
Fine.
So there's one other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, and that is the Massachusetts Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Francisco Urena,
Yep.
showed up at the memorial services ceremony.
I did see
And I
that.
thought it would be a nice thing for the town to send him a letter and thank him for
Sure.
attending the ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very expeditious if you were to draft something.
And I've already formally talked to him
Yeah.
about, and he actually called me the following day and we
Yeah,
talked, so.
that's fantastic. Although we should probably expect, the national cemetery is basically in our backyard, that could actually occur on days like Memorial Day. We should be thinking of that, but I did see that you had posted that. Marketing is everything, and I think that was good to capitalize on that we're on his radar. But yeah, if you want to draft something, or I can take a look at it, but I think that's a good idea.
Okay,
Awesome.
yep,
Thank you, Sheila.
you're welcome.
I don't know if you have a band or singers, but the high school would like to do that on the 11th. November 11th.
Sure, absolutely. In fact, we talked yesterday at the meeting, and we realized that the 22nd is outside of the school, and that we would love to have you guys come on November 11th for both providing the band and the singer for the national anthem would be amazing.
The volunteer days, have you sent me the dates?
I will.
They need service hours.
Oh, absolutely. All right.
And last on the formal agenda, Dr. Casavant
Thank you.
and Ms. Hughes, come on up. Sorry you had to wait through the whole thing. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll take the original. I mean,
Thank you.
So thank you for adding us to your agenda this evening.
Absolutely.
As you said, Margaret Hughes, Chair of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee, Dr. Casavant. We came really just to say hello to the new members and introduce ourselves, because I certainly we could have sent this off in the mail to you, but we wanted to come and formally introduce ourselves and thought this was a nice way to
Yep.
to get on the agenda. So what I've presented to you, you had sent us a letter
Yes.
talking about the lease of the Templeton Center School Building. And we, as a committee, discussed it, and this is our response back to you. So I'll give you just the quick highlights.
Sure.
Normally, the person owning the building provides the lease, and the committee felt that we would look to you to give us something. We certainly understand that this isn't a normal leasing situation, since it is specific to schools, and we'd be happy to work with you. We are members of professional organizations, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, the Mass Association of School Committees, the Mass Association of Regional School Committees. So we are happy to reach out to them, provide the town with any documentation or exemplars that we could to help in putting this together.
Right.
So that was the first piece. The second was, you had commented on the capital outlay provision that is in the agreement. Any of the financial obligations are driven by the agreement, and we would need to make a change to the agreement. It's not something that would be covered in the lease. We will certainly take it under advisement. I believe it was in I think it was February's meeting, that, I'm not sure if Carter, it was you had brought it up, or one of the other select board members there had said, this has been in place for a long time.
Yes.
It's $5,000. Is it time we look to increase that?
Yeah.
So, we should look at that. One thing just to keep in mind is if we pay for it, our operating expenses are split to the towns by population of students. And that's part of the reason why that number stays fairly low, because the two towns take care of their elementary schools, and neither one of them wants to be splitting costs of a specific elementary school. So that's one of the reasons that it isn't a larger number. But we certainly will take it under advisement when we review the agreement the next time that we discuss it, which should be soon, because we'll update it once the new building is open, to remove the other buildings that will go away and leave just the Templeton Center School Building, which is in the agreement already. The other thing is there is an amendment process, and I'm not sure if the town is aware of that, because I know not everybody is like the school committee, where we sleep with our agreements and read them. The town.
Amendment to the existing lease.
Well,
what you
to,
meant?
to the regional agreement.
Yeah, you should put it-
To
So-
the regional, okay,
The
I
regional
understand,
agreement
got it.
itself.
Yep.
So that the towns can also present an amendment to the agreement, and there's a whole process for it. I gave a quick snippet of it, but you can read through the process. The town would bring it to their town meeting. If it's approved, it would be sent to the secretary of the school committee, which Dr. Casavant is such a secretary.
Okay.
And then it goes to all the member towns, which of course we just have two, and it goes to the town meetings, to both of those for approval, and both towns would need to pass it. So there is a process to make that happen, so if you didn't want to wait for us, you certainly could, at any point of agreement in the regional agreement, take that upon yourselves. So I did want to point that out, because I don't think many people realize that towns do have some say into what's in the agreements, and you can take action, so.
Right.
So that's basically the
It's not
content of.
a diamond that you're trying to chip away at.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. When,
that
wa-
was it.
when was the original agreement?
So.
You know, talking about,
The district agreement was last amended in 2004, but it was 1955. The original agreement was signed in 1955, it was amended in 1977, which was prior to the Ed Reform Act of 93, and it was further amended in 1998, and then further amended in 2004.
okay,
Specific to the lease, there is a statement, and of course I didn't tag it, so I'm never gonna find it as I'm
No,
looking,
that-
but I will
that's fine.
speak to what I
Yeah.
saw. It does mention the lease on the buildings in this 2004 amendments were in place through, I want to say it was 2000, oh, here it is. All original lease renewals shall be deemed ratified and approved and extended until December 31st, 2007. There are auto-renew provisions in those leases.
yeah.
So it would have just rolled over at that point. They can only renew, I believe it's 20 years at a time, is what they roll for. So it would have just rolled because back in 2007, that was prior to me being here, so we wouldn't have known to even look at them. We probably can't find them, so.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good practice now to have this new lease. We'll update everything. I know there's been changes in laws and language and whatnot, and.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm mostly concerned about, is how, is this document with amendments or whatever provisions that we have for the amendments, is it going to hold up to what we need it to be? Understanding how tumultuous the situation is. I did not watch some of the emotional meetings. I'm catching up on watching them. If it wasn't for, TCTV and the other towns' ability to record these things, we would, I don't have the schedule to be at all these meetings. I think it's very difficult to try and keep up with the narrative. But document versus the tumultuousness is what my concern is, not, are we communicating with each other in different ways, and sometimes there are miscommunications? Yes. Going forward, I think we know what the work is. I think that we're trying to get through this, understanding the constrictions that we have and the emotions that wind up bringing it through. Well, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was really gonna say that we had Miracle Connell, our attorneys, look over, they have an arm of their group that does regional agreements, et cetera. Obviously, there was nothing that was, as he put it, was, against the law any longer. It's outdated. It's certainly bare bones. If
Right.
you look at any other regional agreement, of course, they are very different depending. There certainly isn't a lot there, quite frankly.
No,
It
and-
doesn't
and-
speak to a lot of
Yeah.
things, so.
And the law, if you read through the law book, because, you have nothing else to do at night, it addresses all of the salient points that the law says you must have in the agreement. So, to Chris's point and our legal counsel's point, it is in accordance with the law. And obviously, if something wasn't, the law trumps whatever is in the original agreement and so on and so forth. I think for the lease component of it, the lease really speaks specifically, and if you read the paragraph and hear what it talks to, is who's responsible for things like insurance, if changes need to be made inside, how does that whole process happen? So more of because it's not really a financial document, because it's, as I think, Jeff, you had pointed out at the last meeting, that there is no dollar value assigned to the lease. It's just, as the agreement, it's given to the school to use. So it's really those operational things that we want to make sure that we're both on board with, so that if something happens, that the communication channels are open and we know, hey, who's paying for this and why? Where is it? Oh, okay, it's right here in the lease and it's stated out. So, as I said, we're happy to work with you. We're not saying this to throw it back at you and say, hey, we're gonna sit back. We wanna work with you on it. It may be best if we do have discussions along the way. But, we felt it should just formally initiate from the town to us. But again, we're happy to help any way we can and provide information and some exemplars. There's, we're not the only regional district, so.
Got it.
I believe there's also an item in the agreement that formally, it's supposed to be looked at every 20 years, I think.
So-
From the original date, every
Yeah, it's more
20
like
years, I
every
think.
5 years.
It's, the regional agreement itself has to be reviewed every 5 years. So, and I will say that as a committee, we have looked at it.
There's a
We haven't taken action on anything, but we do review it. It goes to our long-term planning subcommittee to take a look at. And again, with all the changes happening, we've really been holding off because we know we have, name changes, that we have things that need to be addressed. What people don't understand, this process isn't as simple as the town's just voting on it, and so be it. The Commissioner of Education needs to be involved, his legal team needs to be involved. It is a fairly lengthy process. So when you open it, you want to make sure you're ready to move with all of the pieces, so you're not doing this all
Yeah.
the time. So that's kind of why we've been a little hesitant to open it until we're at a point where, hey, we can address every single thing because we're ready to.
Yeah.
So, and there's not a lot, as I said, that really just streamlining some of the provisions and the language that is
Yeah.
very outdated.
I'm certainly not as well versed with that agreement that probably anyone in this room is, but certainly you and the doctor are. I want to make sure going forward, if this is the team that's going to be working the nuts and bolts and getting through the tumultuousness, as I say, I want to make sure that that it's not a document that frustrates people and disallows ideas or any kind of teamwork that we can foster to get through issues like this. Chris, when you, at the town meeting, when the amount of frustration that we have with the configuration of our school district, I don't want that. I want the public to be aligned with an agreement, a school district agreement that they can believe in that helps them out. Some of the concerns, like how long are kids going to be on the bus? That's how I'm connecting these dots to make sure that we have a school district agreement that fosters a good environment for education, a new school, the right amount of staff, all these different things, and then ultimately paying the bill. And we're getting there. I think from our perspective, that's the dialogue that we were trying to foster. How do we gonna pay the bill for this at this point? The school agreement, I think we're gonna get there. Lease, yeah, we got it.
Yeah, I think those are almost the easy things.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're right, and we welcome any and all communication. If you haven't seen yet, we've already announced a couple of tri-board meetings to get the Board of Selectmen of both towns and the school district
I
together.
didn't, but
Okay,
thank you
yeah,
for
it'll
letting
come.
me
We
know.
actually just
Okay.
presented a draft to the school committee of
Okay.
tentative meeting dates, and we try to facilitate that meeting to happen. So we'll get those out, so we can start engaging in some conversations. I think the first one is typically in October.
Yep.
So we can start having some conversations. But we welcome any type of communication at any
Yeah.
point in time, and understanding it is very hard for your board to come, especially when we have meetings the same nights, and there's 100 other meetings. And if we need to set something up, that, we're happy to do that. The only way that the district, the school district can move forward is if we do so with the towns, because, we can only do with the funding that the towns approve for us.
I understand.
So, our hands are tied, so if we can make that work,
Right.
we're ready.
Yeah.
Just feel free to reach out anytime, and we will do the same. So.
As silly as it sounds, I'm a product of public education. I take great pride in having my children go through public, education here, in Templeton and part of the Narragansett Regional School District. So I want to make it work. I want to figure out the right path forward. And I want to see light at the end of the tunnel, so we can do it the way that we want to do it.
Our kids deserve the best education, and, so whatever we need to do to
Yeah.
make that happen, we're on board with it, so.
Yep.
So great, so that was it, so, again, nice to meet all of you.
Absolutely.
And Jeff, we've known you for a bit.
Yep, any questions or any other comments or otherwise? If you can entertain that?
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll try.
Well, first, we have town council on standby. When I sent the letter over, Chris said, well, maybe you all should do that, and I said, fine. I'm just being the cheapskate that I am. I didn't formally cut him loose till we got this, which we'll do. It's on his dance card. If they can get us some samples, we work more on commercial real estate side of things.
We're happy to do, we actually have
You'll
some
find
ready to
that
go,
language
so.
very interesting, I'm sure. So if we could get some examples, that would be great. Secondly, it is a long process to change the agreement. The interesting thing about long processes generally take the same amount of time whenever you start them.
Yeah.
And it was February of 2017 when the community first asked about the amendments. And the suggestion was, well, let's get a review by council and see, are we missing stuff? Should some stuff there, have statutes changed? I don't know the full answer on that. And under the chairman's leadership, there have been some changes made that address some of our concerns, a draft budget by February 15th, a final budget by March 15th. We'd like to see that get codified. So I would simply respectfully request that the need to revisit the language of the agreement is the same today, approaching July 4 of 2019 as it was in February of 2017. And while it's a long process, I will just point out to you that it'll be the same long process every month you delay it. So I see this as three issues quickly of the moment. There's the FY20 budget. What's your relationship going to be going forward? That takes a little more time. And third is, what are we going to do as a community? We can commiserate about how mean the state is to us.
Right.
We can talk with the senator when she comes in once a year and say, when are you guys gonna keep your promise? But this is gonna take much harder, more serious work. And we would truly like to see that become a conversation in and of itself, because it's not gonna be done by this school district by itself. I've been through the lawsuit that spawned ed reform here in the early 90s. I've been through the lawsuit that spurred it in New Hampshire under the Claremont decision. The funny thing about court cases is they take a long time, and generally about the same amount of time whenever you start them. So I don't want to lose sight of the progress that has been made, but I don't want people to walk away if they get part one solved. How are we going to fund FY20? And then kind of forget about part two and part three. That really has got to stay
You said you had tri-board
front
meetings.
and
Right.
center.
So let me just give you some information about some things that as a school committee we've done and personally on my agenda. So as a school committee, we do advocate because education funding is broken. All of the Promise Act, all of these things that you hear about, unfortunately, we are in hold harmless, and I could spend hours talking about ed funding to you. I won't do that at this point, but we're hold harmless. It'll take 5 to 7 years if every provision of that act passes for us to see a penny of relief. So we are, as great as it sounds, and I hope everybody gets some money, we are gonna be last on the list. So there's some big fallacies out there that people are not aware of when it comes to things such as, okay, great, we have Chapter 70, but that's not it. There's the second page that drives your minimum local contribution. And when your minimum local contribution goes up over 2.5% and you're given no levy limit increase corresponding that the state has now forced you, that's an issue. And this town in particular, the town of Templeton, has suffered year after year from that. And that, I think, if you go back historically, is the crux of most of the issues that the state, the governor announced he spent $273 million more on education this year. What he didn't tell you was he pushed $239 million back to the local municipalities. So it's all great we get more money, but who's going to pay for it? So even if the Promise Act comes on board, who's going to pay for it? And these are big questions that nobody seems to answer. So just to let you know, I am a board member of the Mass Association of Regional Schools. We do advocacy for things like this. So we are looking at, and actually we're hoping to be even more active to try and get the legislators to understand the true impact, especially to these regional schools, especially to the ones that
Yeah.
are in this hold harmless position.
Yeah, I've been following, there's, I think it's an article that keeps getting referenced on social media about how it's broken in our communities. And when I say our communities, like Western Mass,
Yep.
west of
Yes,
495.
declining enrollment
It was
is the
Spence-
driver.
I think it was Spencer that they did the study
Mm-hmm.
on, yeah, okay, we're on the same sheet of music. But, more to Carter's point, keeping the dialogue, what is gonna be the structure, who's gonna talk to, how are we gonna work together within the 20 budget, however we wind up going forward. That was interesting to me, for something that I wasn't fully considering. I'm not sure how you thought about that,
We've got work to do.
I mean, a little bit separate from your point tonight, which was to say hello and address the lease agreement, but we've got work to do. We know what your number is coming forward, we're working it.
I think for the record, because I know that I receive, I'm sure as many calls as Carter receives, in regards to a couple things, like the MSBA has been notified. Well, of course, the MSBA has been notified. It's only a week today, last Tuesday was the meeting, so we've been in contact with them, we're explaining out. Honestly, the most recent history, in a two-pager of what's, what is the configuration, why are the reasons why we're doing
Yep.
X, Y, or Z.
You and I, yep,
Yeah,
we're on the
so
same sheet.
we're doing that. We've contacted the state, because we need to do that, to say that, look, we do not have an agreed budget. And they've requested the 1/12 paperwork, which really is just about cash flow and again, another narrative, so that the commissioner can then look at if he's gonna have to set a preliminary budget or whatever. Earlier is always better with the state, so that's why we've been in conversation with them as well.
Right.
So, I think they're both going to say, well, talk this out, fix this, in a sense. They're going to, that's gonna be the pushback, at least.
They're gonna say
Yes.
to,
Yeah,
us,
yes.
the us
When I say
being,
us, I mean the
got it.
collective,
Yes, they do not want to get involved.
do
They would
not.
like us to
They
solve
do
it at
not.
the local level,
They
obviously.
don't want to put anything in writing, I will be
Yeah.
very candid about that. They're
Right.
going to eventually have to respond to my
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily want to do that, as we
Yeah.
know, because they don't want to, they don't want to get involved with this. They truly don't want to be the, kind of the money police, so to speak. So that's the sense that Anne Marie and I, because we're doing obviously the bulk of this, and, but we are doing that. I just need everyone to know that we are absolutely doing the due diligence of notifying at least the state agencies that are most affected, or we are most
Yeah.
affected by.
and we're thinking through the whole process. It's not like we shut off our brain a month ago and said, that's all the good ideas I had.
No.
But, I think that's the point too, with the amount of communication, we're able to think, if we know what the other person's, thinking we're doing. Because it does come down to numbers, if we're aware of what the numbers are, then we know, then we can't go off on a tangent if we don't know what a number is.
What they represent, obviously.
Yeah.
So what do the dollars represent?
Yep.
Both on the local side, and what they mean, obviously, for the school side, and where can that agreement be? It's, I know,
I would-
it's a hard conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to take a step backward. I think there's an old saying, I don't know if it's an army saying or it only takes one oh crap to mess up 10 attaboys. And we had a whole lot of attaboys. And I can't take credit for a lot of the attaboys, the past administration and otherwise. We have a bond rating, all this good news that we have.
Right.
I would rather not have this, oh crap, take center stage and set us back.
Agreed. No one wants
Yeah.
this.
If I personally won the lottery tomorrow,
I'd be writing you a
We've
check
all
for
said that.
$988,000.
Exactly. And I think just to say it, because I know we're being recorded and people will watch it, so from a process perspective, the school committee recertified after the budget failed. The town of Templeton has 45 days to have a town meeting from the date we certified.
Yep.
So I know you are busy working on
Yes.
that. If something happens and that number is not passed, the next step is a district-wide town meeting that the district holds. I believe the two select boards get together and appoint a moderator. If you read through the
Yep.
whole law book, it's a lot of fun.
Read through it,
And then we have to post it for 14 days and it goes to district-wide, and at that point, it becomes tough because the towns, kind of lose the input from the voters just in that town as to what the budget's going to be, and you were going to be told this is the bill from the school, and there's no more negotiation at that point. And similar if the state has to come in, So, hopefully we will come up with
Yeah.
what we need.
I would say that there's another partner in this. There are the school, and of course, we have Templeton and Phillipston, and I think that, and I realize what meeting I'm in, but we're trying to, again, bridge the gap of this communication. It's a three-way conversation, it
Okay.
truly is. So, again, we're trying to keep the lines of communication open. This is a configuration from my perspective, right? So we've heard me enough, I know, and I'm sorry about that, but for me, it's a configuration issue which equals a money issue, or just reverse it, a money issue equaling a configuration issue. That is just my, again, the linear brain of this side of the brain in terms of money and people and kids and seats and all of those type of things. But realizing, of course, that there's an emotional part of it, and that, of course, is playing out a
Yeah,
little bit right
that
now.
I've been
and that's
made aware
very,
of.
you
Yeah.
have to respect that. It isn't just about, the bottom line, and we have this emotional response, and so we're trying
Right.
to work through that.
Class in empathy and sympathy,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't wanna hurt the parents of the kids you're trying to help.
I know.
And that, believe me, when the school committee sat and deliberated for many, many hours, that was a lot of our discussion. Our main goal is to provide the best education for these kids, but we do it within the constraints of the communities we represent.
Right.
So there
The
has to be a
resources, yeah.
balance of doing that and taking emotion into consideration as much as we can.
In conversation, it was mentioned to me that if the state does come in, I don't understand the whole dynamic if the state does come in. They set the precedent, and I'm not a fearmongerer, I'm not trying to, but I'm trying to understand the piece where if the state does come in, do they get a piece of us?
So
they set the
it
budget.
really becomes an oversight. It's not
Yeah.
what you've heard of receivership, where they go in and they take over, and they're there in your building. We have to vet everything, the school district, through the appointed person up at the Department of Ed. The commissioner also will make whatever decisions he feels are necessary for the financial stability of the district.
I call it a mini receivership.
Yeah, and our commissioner was a receiver.
Right.
So our commissioner knows what receivership is all about. And again, I like local control. I like us to try and make the best decision for the kids. And it scares me to think, what would someone from the outside coming in and looking at us think, and what decisions could possibly be made. So we do, and you're right, receivership light might be, and he stays in place until June 30th, or if we don't get a budget for the following year set, he stays. So it's just, it's not where we want to be. So, we're really hoping that we come to a resolution sooner rather than later, because 1/12, which is the July 1st date, without a certified budget, also has other implications. We can only spend 1/12 of the FY19 budget. And that becomes a problem when we have contractual increases for health care, retirement, et cetera, just like.
Commissioner has discretion at that
He
point.
does, but from what we've heard, there is limited times where he's ever used that discretion, so.
Well,
we're opening a brand, you know, a new school, so.
Again, it's his discretion, we can hope.
We asked those direct
Mhm.
questions,
Yep.
of course
They
we
won't,
did,
yeah.
and they're not willing
Nope.
to give many answers. That's kind of the information that they're looking for right now from us.
Yeah.
And we're providing it. So, again, the unknown is what is, of course, the concern, because we truly don't know. I think, though, to Carter's point, and I want to go back to the agreement, but the conversation piece, I think that, you know, we can literally just schedule a meeting, you know, of course, the three, you know, to talk about, of course, in this case, the regional agreement. But the quicker we have conversations together about finance, I mean, we don't know what October's going to bring. We don't know. Let's see where we're at, meaning, where are we? 1/12, what's happened, or whatever. But that's still, we should, at this point, I would suggest that we at least meet as early as October, if not earlier, just to start. We have to keep talking, because right now, what we know is that there's a meeting going on in our other district that's looking to, to protect its interest. And again, it concerns me because we have students involved.
Can you clarify when you say "we," the parties involved?
NRSD.
The school
The school
district,
district.
our other member town, Phillipston, is having their own meeting this evening,
Right,
so.
right.
And they have-
Are you talking about the Board of Selectmen, the
It was
parents?
a Board of Selectmen meeting is what was going on tonight, but obviously the parents have input as to their displeasure with the recertified number. So,
Yeah, they're upset about the configuration.
Right.
And
People have lost
which equals
jobs.
money, or either way, but mostly because they're losing what they've known and what they cherish, which is a K-5 elementary.
Yep.
So, as the school committee, the number that they certified, put into play is that the pre-KK would be educated in the Phillipston building. That's where we're currently at right now, and 1 through 5 will be educated at the TC, new TC building. That has, of course, has upset folks.
Busing.
It's,
Partly.
busing is going to be, might have a tiered situation, but it's more or less about the fact that they want their K-5.
It's a sense of identity.
It's a sense of identity. That's just like Templeton.
Yeah.
The schools are in almost every town, their identity, their elementary schools, whether it's a
It's right in the
regional
middle.
or otherwise.
Right.
It's important to them, so they're going to fight for what's important, the emotional piece, as we talked about.
Yes.
So, there's the money piece, and then there's the emotional piece. And interestingly, that this configuration still leaves us $579,000, to the, over. Whereas the other, which was even a more desperate, from Phillipston's perspective, got us close to, 200,000, whatever it was,
Yeah.
239, whatever it was. I don't have my paper in front of me, which was, we thought we were moving, but again, the emotional piece of that has to be considered, because they're losing their identity. So
Right.
it's been quite a balance.
Yeah.
Moving forward, but you're right. The only way to go through it is to communicate and keep talking, about figuring it out.
Thank you.
thank you.
Carter, that brings us, Mr. Terenzini, that brings us through our new business. Do we have any old business?
I have none this evening.
Okay. We're up to board and staff member comments and reports. If you don't mind, I'll go first. Chris, I know you're still in the room. I really wanted to,
He's left the building.
well, I think you'll find it interesting. So, I've been a selectman for about a month now, and one of the first things that, you find out about what social media, that has become a new communication mode.
Sure.
The social media that I use, I have an Instagram account because my daughter's on Instagram. I do Twitter because one of the other organizations, but Facebook, I've been on there since probably early 2000s. So I find out about a Facebook group within town. It's a group, so you have to get let into it. I get let into it, and I see this giant conversation going on throughout the community. I've heard things like, well, some of the people don't live in Templeton. There seems to be fairly well, and I know that social media has been around for quite a while, blogs and otherwise. I think from my perspective as the board chair, as a preemptive measure, at least from the people that are sitting on this side of the table, we need to be careful about what social media that we use, what blogs or otherwise, and to make sure that we are speaking for the board. If we can talk about things that that have happened or otherwise, that's fine. But in terms of conducting business, social media becomes more of an intelligence gathering arena to inform about something. But I want to make sure, and I say this more as a preemptive item, but as also a pledge to say, I know exactly what my role is on social media. I know the group that I'm talking about. Chris, you're on this group. I see, you've probably seen me post on there. Anytime I post on there, I try and understand it from this side of the table, and that I have other voices. I may be the chair, but we act as a board. So I think that's one of the experiences that I know within my 3 years up here is going to be understanding the social media aspect. That's where things wind up getting very, what would be the right word, heated.
Like the game telephone, misinterpreted,
Yep.
misunderstood,
And
made a joke of.
exactly.
People's personalities come out.
But I understand their perspectives the more that I read the conversations. And if that's one of the things that we're talking about within the community, we certainly have plenty of things that are happening in the community. I just want to be able to I know I can see what's going on. I hope that's as transparent as we can be with our discussions and otherwise. So I basically pledge to the people out there, the people in the room listening, and to my fellow select board. I'm out there, I see it, but I want to make sure that I'm telling you that I'm moving forward in a very polite and regimented fashion. Any questions?
No, I just hope to be respectful of both sides too.
Yep. They're
Respectful of
hungry
the-
for information, and I want to be able to present it. This is the place where we officially present it, but if people miss items that are going on, or if there's misconceptions about selectmen stipends, whether the DPW is fully engaged or otherwise.
Electric company.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that that's of interest to you, Carter, for everyone that's complaining about potholes and otherwise. We see it until the phone rings in this building. We sometimes don't know how frustrating it can be. But the DPW is out there, and, they're getting a hot box pretty soon. There's gonna be a lot of material that they're getting with the capital plan, but sometimes it doesn't make it to this forum. And I would like to try and bridge that gap.
Me too.
To be
Yeah.
able to make sure that they understand what's going on in here.
They're watching though, we all are, but they refer and they post all of these meetings.
Yeah.
And so I find that encouraging. I do.
I do.
Look,
But
you
I'm
cannot
hoping-
like something or like something, but they're going to hear, they do listen, we
Sure.
post all these up. I think that's a positive thing, trust me, it's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
You better be thick-skinned,
Humble.
especially in this one place.
Gotta be
but-
humble.
That's right, it have to be, but they're watching these taped meetings, both
That's
the
good.
school committee and the select board and the planning board. I think that's very positive. I do.
Yep.
I don't know
think
if
it
I
is,
speak for
personally.
anyone else, but I'd like to see win-win. How do you create win-win? Because if anyone in the community loses, as a select board, we lose. You know, if we lose, if the community makes us lose, they lose. So if we're not working together to come up with solutions, There's no stupid questions, there's no dumb ideas. And if we're not working together and listening to each other, how are we gonna move forward in a healthy way?
Yep.
Where
Well,
we
and-
all
and you-
win?
And you frequently say, we're all in this together. I understand the essence of what you're saying. I think it's very true. Carter, did we ever adopt a social media policy? It was discussed years ago, but I'm not sure if it's still,
We did not.
okay. Maybe
It
something
was
we
proposed and
revisit, but
suggested.
I wanted to be able to share
If
that
it's
with
something
you.
the board would like us to
I'd love to see it.
look at, we certainly can.
Yep. In light of what I, brought up, at the end as board comments, I think it's something that we need to
Nice
take a
to meet
look
you.
at.
Thank you, Chris.
Are there any other board or staff member comments? That's board or staff?
Yes,
Yep.
I have one thing. And I saw the open date when I was looking through annual town reports and stuff. So I dug through some minutes, and I found when the town accountant was hired, she was to start in December 15th of fiscal year 15. And right now, as reported in the annual town report, it shows appointed officials, and next to her name is no end date. Like, she's not appointed till, May 2018 or whatever. So I went and looked at the Mass General Law with accountants, their tenures and powers. And it says the accountant shall hold office for 3 years, or at the discretion of the appointing authority, a person may be appointed to the position of town accountant for a term of not more than 5 years. And 5 years would be, if she did start December 15th, 2014, that would be December coming up. And I speak on this because in the past, we had a position, a town coordinator that was appointed open-ended, even though the law that was cited at the town meeting vote to create the position specified a 3-year term. As I look at the annual town report, since Kelly has been here, she's one of the people that work in the building. She doesn't have an employment contract, and she has an open-end appointment. She's not appointed for any, and I think it would be better if there was a term for her, because as it stands right now, it would be like, hey, you're all done, because there's no appointed date. She's not appointed until June 30th, 2019, or June 30th, 2020. She was hired according to the Board of Selectmen minutes and the YouTube tape that I watched. She started December 15th, 2014, but she doesn't have, I can't find a record of, you're appointed for 3 years, and that would be in 17, and then reappointed again. It's like she's
Open-ended?
hanging out in the breeze without
What Mass
defined
General Law defines it?
limits.
You have that there?
Let me make sure I give you the right one. Oh, right here.
41.
And I think there should be a specific term. And my other question is, like, the highways director DPW director has a contract. Carter Terenzini has an employment contract. The treasurer collector has one, but not the accountant. It's like, you're the town accountant, and that's it. There's nothing in there outlining, her duties, her responsibilities, her benefits, her recourses, her path. Like I said, it's open-ended. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, you're appointed till
Yeah.
we say, we'll
Retire.
see you. And that's, oh, by the way, that date, that's like, next week. Because there's no employment contract for her, and there's no appointment date from this date to this date. And then when her time is up,
Yeah.
get reappointed again. And I think that should be
Well, I
looked
can
at
say the
and
previous chair,
fixed.
I'm surprised that there isn't some of the detail that you're talking about, because I know the previous chair made it, that's one of his platform issues, was policy and duties and descriptions and evaluations and things like that, so.
And it's, like I said, she's the only one that is, in my opinion, like that previous town coordinator was like, well, you know, you're gone, and, well, you don't have, you need parameters when you're hired, and you're hired until this date, and then you're, because she's an appointed employee. So then you're reappointed from here to
Who's the
here.
appointing authority?
Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And, I mean, she's, in a nutshell, I think, in my opinion, she's like swinging in the breeze. She doesn't have, there's nothing benefiting her, outlining, like I said, her duties, her, you know, any standards, you know.
Okay.
And how do you evaluate somebody when you don't have
I-
criteria when you hire them?
That part I
You gotta
understand
do
quite
this, this,
well.
and this, you know, and these are your duties.
Mhm.
It's like, I just think that's something that this board should address
Okay.
sooner rather than later, even though, you know, we do have, the school thing is probably the biggest thing to deal with, but I think
Yeah,
that's
I
something
agree
that
with
should
you.
be,
Yeah, priority-wise, I understand.
to be
okay.
up there on our agenda at some point in time. That was my, and again, I came across that looking at town reports, and it's like, everybody's got an end date, except her.
Okay.
Good work.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah,
Any
awesome.
other board or staff member comments?
Oh, something that I'm supposed to be doing, I was appointed to MRPC and the MPO, and I didn't make the June 6th meeting for MRPC. I had a previous engagement. I tried to make it work, but I couldn't.
Yeah. Where do they meet?
They meet in Leominster,
Leominster,
at the
okay.
MRPC.
Okay.
I did.
That's where their office is.
I did come up, an agenda for the, like the tip list for the next, from 20 to 24, the projects that are funded through DOT and stuff,
Mhm.
and some federal money.
Mhm.
And for 2023, the roundabout in East Templeton is scheduled to be, construction to be started. Somewhere in the Board of Selectmen's office or downstairs, I don't know where it went in the transfer, but there was a book that showed this roundabout out here at South and North Main Street and 2A or Patriots Road and 101.
I'm going on camera saying, I love that idea.
They are-
That's a
well,
heck of a,
You should go down to 117 in Lancaster or Route 12 and see the two they put in there. Oh, it's
Okay.
wonderful. But this is on the list, and up until 24. I did not see Royalston Road on the list, but maybe it's 25, I don't know. But this was on the list and it was scheduled. And like I said, it's not new, because this has been in planning.
okay.
There's actually, you can actually see a diagram of, but they're putting it like a rotary type of thing in
Yeah.
at that, to try to address that
How does
funky
that get
intersection.
integrated with, like Bob's operation? Does,
I
is he
know,
just-
I've seen.
He's just aware of it,
Well,
or
he
otherwise?
does
will he
Roundabout
provide
is
the
a state,
details?
that's a state numbered
Got it.
road at that project, so that is a state.
So he's just
project.
aware of it.
So Adam and Bob both have been attending these meetings, and I think it was due to their presence that the roundabout actually did make the cut for 2023, 2024.
Because it's been on the,
So we keep an eye on it because it's in our community and we're interested,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really interface with our construction program.
no,
Do
because
we have to
it's,
provide the details or anything? Okay.
Yes, if they need details, we would provide them, but they would hire those from us
Okay.
out of that contract.
I got it.
We don't have to pay
Oh,
anything
that's good.
towards it.
Okay.
it just
Well,
has,
I'm glad you brought that up.
it just has a little,
Yeah.
well, like I said, I got appointed to MRPC and MPO and as a representative to go there just to show them that, hey, you know, Templeton, we
We're
know you
here.
exist and
Yeah.
we're interested in what's going on. The biggest thing that would do as far as affecting the town is when you plow into roads. Because now you're not gonna be able to like back across Patriot to hit this, you're gonna have that roundabout to deal with
Yeah.
and stuff. But like I said, if you, down on
Risk-wise,
Lancaster on 117, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's not much better on Route 12, but that's above my pay grade, whoever come up with that idea and design, but
Yeah.
it's in place and
Okay.
it's scheduled for 23,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
And that is it.
Executive session.
I have nothing for you this evening.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Okay, all in favor for adjourning? Say aye.
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 Let's stay a
We
little
are
longer.
adjourned at
We don't have a TV.
8:54.